All right, hey everybody, we are live on Substack for the Bulwark here. I'm excited to welcome somebody that you saw on your TV a bunch in 2023 and 24. Her name is Karine Jean-Pierre. She was press secretary for Joe Biden. She's got a new book out tomorrow called Independent, A Look Inside a Broken White House. What's going on, girl? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, Tim. Thanks for having me. It's been a while. I don't know, maybe even pre-COVID. I'm trying to
It
figure
has
out
been a minute, probably an MSNBC green room somewhere. I think would have been it. So it's good to see you. Yeah, you were always busy. I swung by a couple times the White House, but never. You had briefings to get to.
a lot going
I
on.
I want to get into the book. Obviously,
Yeah.
much to discuss. But we're just coming off this weekend of public action and protests with the No Kings rallies, and that's. I think it's an interesting backdrop to you kind of doing this tour and talking about the book and talking about the importance of fighting Trump's assault on our democracy. So I was wondering what you made of it. I'm sure you're busy. I don't know if you got out to one of them, but I just wondering what you think.
I thought it was fantastic. I think it's exactly what we need in this moment where our democracy is under attack every single day. It's walking into an authoritarian regime because of Donald Trump. And the fact that it was the third one and it only grew by millions or more than millions or what, it grew. It didn't, people are even more engaged, even more getting involved. It's pretty amazing to see just across the country and 7 million people saying, no, this is not who we want to be or who we are. There are no kings here. We got to fight for our democracy. We have to fight for vulnerable people. We don't want this anymore. This is not what this country should be, is all about. It is really gives me some comfort in this time of fear. And one of the things that people need to know and understand is when it comes to authoritarianism, when it comes to fascism, dictatorship, chaos is connected to that. And chaos also brings fear. And where we are in this moment, we cannot be fearful. We need to be fearless. We need to show up because they want us to be silent. They want us to be quiet. And so, what I saw this Saturday, this past weekend, was really wonderful to see because it means that people are not staying quiet and they are going to stand up and speak very loudly about this moment.
Um, what have you thought about the first 10 months and of the Trump administration? Has anything surprised you? Is there a particular action they've done that you think is the most acute rallying point?
Well, Tim, they were pretty clear. Project 2025, as you know, right? I mean, you've talked about it. They were not ashamed of it last year in 2024. They leaned into Project 2025, anti-DEI, going after federal workers, government, the institutions that hold us together, throwing out the rule of law. This is everything that they were very clear about doing. They're doing, and in rapid speed. That's probably the only thing, is like the rapidness of the speed that it's happening in. But we saw the first Trump administration, and that was a more of a cultural war. And then what we see now is more, okay, we know exactly what we want to do. We've been watching the Biden Harris administration. Now we want to turn everything around, undo items that are really, or policies that were really pertinent and important to people who are vulnerable, who need certain help and policies that we were putting forth. And they're just undoing that, and it is incredibly frightening. But that's the point. That is the point of what they've been doing this past 10 months.
All right, so let's get to the book. Why
Yeah.
write this? You don't have to. You had a lot of things you could do. You could have
That's
gone. I don't know.
true.
I don't know. Jay Carney went to do PR for Amazon. You could have an MSNBC show maybe. Like there are things you could have done. You didn't have to write a book doing.
I appreciate that. You're right.
So why'd you do it?
I could be a mom, right? And I
Be a
am
mom.
being a
Yeah.
mom. But so I think everything that I just laid out, Tim, it's scary. These are unprecedented times. And I know we've said that before, but we just talked about the last 10 months of this administration, what's been happening. And I will add, when I came out of the administration after January 20th with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I was hearing from people. People were coming up to me, and some of them were crying. They were fearful, they were scared, and they were saying to me and asking questions, what are we going to do? What's happening with the Democratic Party? Why is no one fighting back? Why weren't they prepared? And that was the part of the catalyst of me wanting to write a book now as a private citizen, trying to give voice and saying the quiet stuff out loud and give a roadmap for Americans out there who are trying to figure out how do we get our politicians, this political party, to actually wake up and be held accountable as well. And this two-party system isn't working. It's not working, and we need it to work in order to have a functioning democracy.
Yeah, and so I guess that's where look, I'm with you on the need to fight and people needing to fight harder. Doing it with outside the construct of the Democratic Party, I'm curious about why you felt you need to do that. I mean, obviously I left a party once, so I know a little bit about this. I left a party though, based on substance, based on the person that took over the party, did not represent my values. Thought he was a danger to the country. I've got my complaints about Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and the Democratic leadership, of course. I got some complaints about Joe Biden, which we'll talk to about in a minute. But none of them are existential complaints, and so I'm wondering why you felt the need to shed the party label.
So here's the thing: unprecedented moments need unprecedented actions. I truly believe that. And as a Black woman who was obviously part of the Democratic Party, and I'm speaking for myself here, and again, I'm trying to start a conversation, which is kind of the whole point of the book, but Black women have been the backbone of the Democratic Party. Black women have been on the front lines of the Democratic Party. And what I have seen over and over again is that for the most part, in large part, we are left out of the process, or we are forgotten. And I have my queerness too, which is very important to me. And I feel like the groups who have stood by the party leadership get forgotten and are not included. And so I think it's important to speak loudly about that. But not just that, I want them to work for my vote. I want them to know, no, I'm not just going to sit here and be part of the base or whatever you think, whatever it is that, however they see this group of, they see Black women. I want to actually stand outside of the two-party lines and speak up and push from where I am. And I think I have an opportunity to do that coming from my background, coming from working in the Democratic Party for 20 years. And the party should not, let me rephrase this. The system should not be about parties. It should be about people power.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to push. And at the end of the day, a conversation is starting, a conversation is having. People are asking me, and I'm doing the interviews with you about why am I doing this? And I get to lay that out in my own way. And again, say the things that people are saying privately out loud.
Yeah. A couple of things I want to get to, but let's just talk about, being a Black woman and feeling like, maybe Black women, the base of the party, aren't being heard. And obviously Kamala Harris ended up being the nominee for the Democratic Party, a Black woman last time. She also has a book out, 2 books happening right now, 107 Days. In that book, she talks about how she felt like she was sidelined by your big boss, really, by Joe Biden, and a lot of times wasn't set up to succeed in her role as vice president, and points some fingers at others in the Biden administration about that. I wonder what you made of what Kamala's book, within her book, and what she said about that in particular.
So I want to first say that I admire Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris. I think she is a force. Her leadership, certainly in that 107 days, was so impressive, and she did something historic. And I will always admire that and appreciate that. And I think it's important that she wrote this book. It's important that we hear her side of the story and her truth. I will say, as you just stated in your question, as a Black woman myself, I understand what it could feel like when you are undermined. I think I talk about my own experience in the book. I don't think I do. I talk about
we're getting to that. Don't worry.
in the book. So I understand how she feels and how she felt. I could only speak for my portion of what I did for the president, which is and there, you can just watch my briefings at moments where I I really felt it was important to defend her, to really talk about her record, and to lay out why she was an important partner of the president. And that was something the president wanted me to do, and that is something that I believed was critical in doing. And so I'm
Yeah.
glad that we're hearing from her, and I'm glad that she wrote this book.
Well, let me just say though, like objectively speaking, she was given a pretty shit portfolio. Like let's solve the underlying problems of the migrant crisis. It's like, okay, I mean that's not exactly setting her up to succeed. And she says in the book, but I had heard about this before. I interviewed Elena Plott, who covered you guys over at the Atlantic a lot, and she did a profile about the vice president before she had taken over at top of the ticket. Just in her role as vice president, was talking about a lot of the things that she was doing. It was a pretty favorable profile. And she said she went to the Biden administration, the Biden team, and asked them for like some examples of where the vice president had been stepping up, doing great work, and said that she got basically crickets. And she just felt I think there's a lot of reporting out there that the White House was not really setting her up to succeed. And given the president's age, I think that's like a huge failure in retrospect. What do you think about that?
I can't speak to Elaine, I can't speak to that experience. I was not part of that particular moment when the reporter asked for more insight and more specific example. I just can't. I think what I can speak to is my role and what I did every day at the podium, especially during the 107 days when I was getting incoming on the vice president, then on the top of obviously running on the top of the ticket. And my job, and this is something that the president wanted me to do, was to speak for her, make sure we were defending her, and do everything that we can to support her. And that is what I can speak to. That is what we did under my time as White House press secretary. Again, I think it's important that she wrote this book. I admire that she was able to tell her truth. We need her voice, and we need to hear what her experience is like. I think many people want to hear that, and that's really all I can speak to.
Well, so I guess just one other element on this that I think you could speak to since you were in there, right? Like another thing that she talks about is essentially that, like, when it comes to the question of the president's age, there was like a lot of pressure to not speak out. I think I don't have it right in front of me. She said we were in a trance or something to that effect, and that there was a lot of pressure from the president and the first lady to not say anything about this, to just put one foot in front of the other, to be loyal to the president. You expressed some concern in the book about disloyalty to the president. I look back at that and think, man, wasn't there a little too much overemphasis on loyalty to Joe Biden and Biden's legacy?
Yeah.
And not enough on setting the party up to succeed, setting Kamala Harris up to succeed.
So a couple of things. The loyalty piece, I don't know which part you're saying that loyalty to the president. What I have said more broadly speaking, in this effort to talk about the broken system and what needs to be fixed, I think the power needs to come out of the White House and more back to the people, like this people power that we're seeing. I think that our democracy should not be just only in the hands of any president. So that's number one. Number two, I did the job. I was White House press secretary, and I was honored and privileged to have been White House press secretary. It is a job that I think is critical and important to speak on behalf of this president. It is important to be able to share with the American people what we're thinking, what the president's thinking is how we move forward. If you're asking me about him deciding to run again, is that where the connection?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I'm asking. These things are all connected, right? Him deciding to run again. I mean, yeah. It's him deciding to run again, but also just this idea that Jill Biden and Joe Biden were deeply concerned about protecting his legacy more than fighting Donald Trump, more than preparing the vice president to be able to fight Donald Trump. And then after he dropped out, there's a lot of conversation. I guess there was a lot of conversation. You were press secretary. I'm sure you hear about this, about protecting President Biden's legacy. And I just why do we care about that so much?
I have to tell you, Tim, I look, the vice president will speak to her experience, and I think she should, and I'm glad that she's doing that. I would disagree that this president was only concerned about his legacy. I think every president cares about their legacy. They want to make sure that it is captured in the best way possible. That's not unusual, whether you have a D or an R behind a name. I think that's just not unusual.
Sure, but I mean, what about the story? He called her before the debate to say that people said they were being mean to him. Like, what is happening? What is happening? That is insane. That's an insane thing to do.
Hold on a second, Tim. You're talking about her experience. I can't speak to her experience. I can't.
But you were around, though.
Wait a minute. You're asking me a broader question, right, about his legacy, and I'm telling you that is not, first of all, not unusual. That was not the focus that I was given. The focus that I was given as a person that spoke for him on a daily basis was to try to communicate what we were doing on behalf of the American people. And you heard that. You heard that from me when I was at the podium. It was always trying to lay out, here are the policies, whether on the economy, whether on healthcare, how we're trying to move the country forward. That was my opening. If you think about my opening, like kind of part of my briefing was always that, how we're trying, it always had the American people in it. It always had how we're moving this forward. It wasn't legacy. That's not what we focused on. We wanted to protect we wanted to protect what Biden had been able to do, because we knew that it would affect Americans for generations. And if it was undone, it would have an effect. So that was our focus. Again, what the vice president has said, that's something she can speak to. I can't speak to it.
Okay.
But was not my experience when we talk about specifically legacy and what we were asked to do on behalf of this president. It is trying to sell and push forward policies that helped the American people.
Yeah.
And and I would argue too, in almost every speech that he gave in 2024, 2023, even during the midterm election, was about democracy, was about protecting our democracy. January 6th, an anniversary of January 6th, he would make a speech around there to talk about how our country is an experiment. And if we do not fight for our democracy every day, we will lose our democracy. He talked about that often.
Well, one more thing on the Biden, and I don't want to get to the rest of the book, but I guess I wonder if you feel this. Like, some of us feel let down because I don't think that he was able to live up to his rhetoric on that. He wasn't capable at his age of making the case from a communication standpoint. There's a lot of the good things he did people didn't know about because he wasn't capable of making a vigorous case. Obviously, he wasn't capable of making a vigorous case on the debate stage. And now, God love him, we send him our best, but he, has cancer. Like, the notion that this person was up for being president to 2028, was up for the communications responsibility of this job and fighting. No, well, if he won again, he would have to have been president all the way till 2028. I think that's an absurd thing to suggest, that he could have been president. Do you think he could have been president in 2028?
I can't speak to that. Here's what
obviously no. But so was he up for it though? I guess he didn't have the vigor for this fight.
We have to rewind the tape a little bit and not be revisionist historians here, because no. But let's just follow me for a second.
Sure.
In 2023, the winter and spring of 2023, we were coming out a successful midterm elections for Democrats, in the sense that we didn't have a red wave. And it was seen as one of the most successful first.
You lost the House.
No, but remember, it was supposed to be a red. I'm not saying.
I know,
but historically, if you look at other first-term presidency, midterm elections, Okay, just follow me for a second.
Sure, I'm just saying it wasn't that great of a midterm.
I didn't. That's not what I said. I said there was I said it wasn't a red wave.
True.
That's what I said. It was predicted to be an awful, awful first term midterms, and it wasn't that. It just wasn't. And the reason why was because Democrats in their districts, in their state, were able to tout what we had been able to do as an administration, and that is also really important. We cannot forget that. Arguably, right? Not even arguably, objectively, this president had a pretty successful couple of years as president, and he got that done because of his experience. And now we're still in the spring, the winter spring of 2023. He was the only person to have beaten Donald Trump, still is. And people in the Democratic Party, leadership in the Democratic Party, were actually saying that he should run for reelection. So we have to look at the time when he made this decision. That was the time that he made the decision in 2023, early 2023. And so that is one of the reasons what came to his mind, I believe. I never even talked to him about it, but those were the facts that were happening in that time. Those were just what was
You never
happening.
talked to him about it?
I was
Being
on
the
the,
oldest president in history and
I
having to
was,
run against Donald Trump and
I
try an
was,
insurrection, you
I
never talked to
was,
him about
I
his
was
age?
not part of his political decision. That was not something I did. Remember, I've always talked about the Hatch Act. That was not something I did. I never asked him about, it was his decision to make. He made it. And there were factors in the spring of 2023 that made sense for him to make a decision in this way. So that's number one. My job was to speak to what the decision he made in the sense of continuing, trying to lift up the policies and the legislative wins that we did have. We did have legislative wins.
Sure,
and
but he didn't talk about them that well, though. He couldn't talk about them. He wasn't campaigning that vigorously.
Wait. First of all, he did talk about them. Whether it broke through or not, he did. Tim, he did talk about.
I mean, he talked way less to the press than Donald Trump does. Way less. And he wasn't out there at all. He wasn't good off the cuff. He wasn't doing press conferences. Let's just be real. Like, he didn't do debate events.
Tim, that's not true. Tim, you're conflating all of it. That's what you're doing. No, you're telling me he didn't talk well about it. Then you're telling me he didn't talk at all.
He didn't do either. He didn't talk very often, and when he did, it wasn't very good. He sounded very old.
Maybe you weren't paying attention to what we were doing at the White House. But
I paid attention. I'm with you on the policies. I'm talking about his performance.
The president spoke to the American people a couple times a week. He traveled and did domestic travel and talked directly to the American people. We are talking about a time politically that is incredibly partisan. It is hard. It's hard to break through any messaging. And it was an incumbency as well. All G7, G10 countries had a really difficult time, if they were an incumbent, getting reelected because of COVID, because of the economy. There are many factors that will play a part in this, in what happened in 2024. That is just true. That is just fact. The reason he made the decision at the time in 2023, there were factors there that led him to make a decision to run for reelection. It was a different time in what he was able to get accomplished, and the midterms, which matter, and him being the only person to have been beaten Donald Trump. There were factors in that decision as well. So, this is a president that used his platform to try to do good, used his platform to make change, and created legislation to do just that. On the other side, you have a Republican leadership, Donald Trump, who only puts forth hatred, divisiveness, Project 2025, which is hurting vulnerable people. I mean, that's what we have right now. That's the person who is in office right now.
And I think that's why people are mad. So here's what I think I think we can agree, Karine. And it's a question of just how to process this. Like, people are pissed that Donald Trump is back in office again. People are pissed. Like, the threat was great. Like, that's what you're talking about. The threat was great. Yeah. We needed an opposition that was up to the threat. And I think some people are upset at the president. I would include myself among those. Some people are upset about the vice president. Some people are like you, are saying that, like, we needed the whole party and we needed a broader fight. But, I just think that is like what is underlying this. It's not like some personal vendetta. It's that, like, people are rightly mad because all this horrible shit is happening. And it's like, well, what can we do better now to prevent this from happening again?
Exactly.
And so talk to me about what you're suggesting.
That's the point, right? That is the point of what I'm trying to talk about. You're not wrong. People are upset. People are angry. Millions of people who came out in 2020 to vote for Joe Biden didn't come out in 2024. They stayed home. They were either disillusioned, didn't feel like their vote mattered, whatever it is, they stayed home. And I think this is the moment now where Democrats in particular here, because I see them as the opposition party. They should be the opposition party. This is a moment to be the opposition party, especially in the moments where you feel like there's an unprecedented time here, and it is. And so they need to do more. And this is what I'm talking about. When you look at, we just started this conversation talking about the No Kings protest. 7 million people came out, millions more than the last one. But it's only organizations, outside organizations, that are putting them together. Why do Democrats not do protests like that and really help infuse and engage and do peaceful protests and show the American public that they're fighting? Why are we not seeing more lawsuits for Democrats, right? Why aren't we not seeing, I think Democrats should go into a red district and talk to them about the economy. There are things that I think that they can do and really show, hey, we're trying to make a change and do it differently.
Yeah.
And right now, what people are seeing, and I know you're saying people are angry, but what I'm also hearing from people that they're angry about is they feel like Democratic leadership is letting go and is giving up on their power. They're acting as if they're powerless when they are not powerless. And so this is the conversation that I'm trying to have. This is what we're trying to figure out, to take that power out of the White House and give it to the people power, because our democracy is at stake.
Yeah. Don't we? So then that takes me back to this question about becoming an independent. Again, I understand the critiques of the Democratic Party, wanting to encourage them to do better, but isn't the only vehicle really politically for stopping Donald Trump right now, aspirationally, sure, like maybe in the future we need more parties, but like right now, the Democratic Party is the only vehicle for doing it. Isn't it better to work within the system to model behavior for how to fight harder, to give advice to Democrats that will listen, right? Like, why leave the party when that is the, sorry to use a pun, but the bulwark, the only political bulwark right now against this regime?
Well, I talked early on about being a Black woman, being part of the LGBTQ community, and how it feels as if we are forgotten and we are not included in certain major decisions and not respected as being at the front lines. And so I talked about that a little bit. And I think if you look at what's happening with independence right now, it's growing. People do not see themselves in any of the party. Millions of people are saying they don't feel like their voices are being heard. Millions of people do not want to affiliate themselves as a D or an R. And that to me shows that the system is broken. And it's not about what is, easy to do. It is about having those difficult conversations. It is certainly being able to say to the Democratic Party, hey, you know what? You have millions of people here who don't feel seen by either two of the party. And so when the process begins to vote, some of them can't even vote in a primary, right? The primary process is closed. And so I think they should see that as, this is a problem. This is a problem. So how do we engage? How do we bring people in so that it feels like a big tent party again? And it doesn't. You cannot throw vulnerable communities under the bus and say you're a big tent party. You can't do that. You can't grow the party if you're not willing to protect vulnerable communities. And so that is what I'm seeing from this current iteration of the Democratic Party. And so
who are they not representing in particular? Like what?
I don't think. Well, I told you, like Black women feel like they get left out of the process. I'm a Black woman. I can speak to that. Obviously I'm speaking to myself. LGBTQ community feel like they're being left out of the process. I mean, and I don't think they're doing enough for migrants and immigrants. We cannot be throwing vulnerable communities under the bus. There needs to be more that has to happen. The political system isn't working for us. That's what millions of people are saying. And so I believe using my platform, having these conversations that we're having a voice, I can shed light to this. Because at the end of the day, when you think about the system, it shouldn't be about politics. It should be about people. People should be at the center of this.
You write in the book. I have to ask this. I have no choice. You write in the book about there was a
You have
person
no
on your
choice. You
team.
have no choice.
I do. I don't really. No, I have no choice. Like it's not like someone else is making me. I mean, like
Whoa, come
in
on.
my
Come on,
nature.
Tim. You're
It
a
is my
powerful
nature.
person as a private citizen.
No, I have a nature. I mean, it's within my own nature that if you write something this provocative, I got to ask about it because I'm a curious kitty. You wrote about how there's a person on a team, a senior person, a mentor that you felt like was undermining you. You mentioned it earlier in the interview. You wrote about it. Who are we talking about? What happened?
I'm not going beyond the book, but the reason why I wrote that is, as a first, it is sometimes even the people who are the closest to you really put roadblocks in front of you. And I wrote it to tell my story, to tell my side. You have to know, and I think you know this, Tim, when I was the White House press secretary, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't leak.
Yeah.
I didn't defend myself.
That's true.
And I really just focused on the work and focused on being White House press secretary for this president. And what ended up happening when I was writing the book, as I was telling the story, I also wanted to tell the story, what it's like to be a first, because I wanted to connect with women who are first, with Black women, with others who have gone through this process. And so I wanted to be honest about what was going on. It was being written about, and I wanted people to hear it from my voice. But I'm not going to go beyond that story. But I believe that many people who read that piece of that part of the book will understand, and it will resonate. And I think they probably feel as if I'm speaking to them, and I want to feel that I touched people in personal ways and obviously helped them get re-engaged in this process, or continue to be engaged in this process as well.
Let's have a little fun at the end. You watched this clown show of the Trump press conferences, your old job, what's happening now. It's truly unbelievable. They've filled the briefing room with hacks, and it would be like as if you would have, I don't know, put a couple of the TikTokers from the K-Hive in the briefing room and had them ask you questions instead of actual reporters. It's worse than that, actually, because at least those people would have been good, honest people with well intentions. These guys have like these horrible far right hacks and apologists for the fascist regime are in there asking them questions. A lot of times, really stupid questions, really obsequious questions. Like do you have it in you to watch this, or can you not?
Well, I have to tell you, Tim, I've not watched it.
Okay.
I basically
I don't blame you.
Yeah, there are better people than me that can speak to this. I will say this, though, and this is something that I truly believe, and I hope that I exemplified that when I was the White House press secretary, standing at that podium behind the lectern. And this is something that President Biden wanted, which is to respect the freedom of the press, which is really one of the things that's incredibly important when you think about democracy, when you think about the fourth estate, right? And taking on the hard questions and making sure that the press was able to have a healthy back and forth with us. And I think the freedom of the press, what's so important about that is they're supposed to hold powerful people accountable. And when you remove that, when that no longer exists, it's no longer free. It's no longer part of our democracy, right? You're talking about a regime, an authoritarian regime. You're talking about fascism. You're talking about dictatorship. And so that is something that I think is really sad and unfortunate that is happening. But the freedom of the press needs to be respected, regardless if you agree with them or not.
You're kind of missing out, I guess. I'm going to tell you. You should maybe just watch someone pull a highlight reel.
You can watch for me.
It is such a clown show. Okay. Anything? Can we close something fun, or do you have any fun little anecdotes in the book? Something that hit the cutting room floor that you wanted to mention? Maybe something about my friend Ben LeBolt, some trash talk.
I love me some Ben. Ben LeBolt is the best. He's a good egg, as my mom would say.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll leave it with that. A little compliment for Ben LeBolt. Little good luck on the book tour. I've been out there, girl. It's a grind. So yeah. I wish you the best.
Thanks, Tim.
Come back and talk to us soon. All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Karine Jean-Pierre. Everybody else will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.